Welcome to the castle, everybody. This is Nightsaber Z42, and this is Character Vault, where I go through the entire process of creating a character from start to finish in various RPG systems. And today, we're going to be taking a look at Fabula Ultima, the ttjrpg. This is basically a role-playing game that is heavily inspired by video games like Final Fantasy. So let's pop this book open to page 154, where the actual character creation process begins. There's a whole bunch of steps before this involving the entire group and then the world setting, but we're just going to be taking a look at the character creation stuff in this video. So there's about 7 different steps to creating a character. First, we have the character's identity. This is a short sentence that briefly summarizes how they see themselves at the moment. Then we get to choose our character's theme, which is a strong ideal, emotion, or feeling that dominates your character's actions. Then we can choose their origin, which is the place they hail from. This can be an actual location on the world map, or this could be something that you're going to plot into the world map yourself. Then we get to choose 2 or 3 classes, and we actually start on level 5 in this game, and so we're going to distribute those 5 levels among those classes that we choose. We'll also be taking note of any free benefits or any of the skills that we gain from those classes. Then we get to determine the dice size for the character's 4 attributes, which are dexterity, insight, might, and willpower. And then we get to calculate hit points, mind points, inventory points, defense, magic defense, and the initiative modifier. And last but not least, we do get 500 zenith, which is the currency of this game, to purchase equipment. And then we'll go ahead and calculate our initial savings by adding any remaining starting equipment money to a roll of 2d6 times 10. So let's start with our character's identity. This is basically like their title. It's supposed to be a very short sentence that really says a lot about this character. And I've decided that Oona is going to be the last druid of what is now known as the Dark Forest. Her goal is to protect all the creatures within and the environment they live in at all costs, and somehow repair the damage that's been done to the Dark Forest. And so our identity is Oona, the last druid of the Dark Forest. If you don't want to come up with your own identity yourself, you can roll on it. There are some handy dandy charts later on the very next page to help you kind of flesh out what your title or your identity is going to be. So simple and easy, let's move on to our character's theme. So for our first character, there are some suggested themes, but of course you can create your own if you so wish. I am actually going to take duty. Oona lives to fulfill a promise that she's made or obey an order that she received, and she's going to be duty bound to protect the Dark Forest at all costs. So that is her theme. Nice and simple and easy. We can move on to our origin. So the origin is the place where this character comes from, and of course I've already thrown out the name the Dark Forest a bunch of times. This is actually going to be her origin right here. So another nice and easy step. If you don't have a title or an identity that's heavily tied to a place, then you will of course have to come up with a place or a village or a town or city or wherever this place is that your character is going to come from. And of course you're going to put it on the map, or if you already have an established map, you can of course use one of those locations. So now we're going to go ahead and choose our starting classes. In Fabula Ultima, there are 15 classes that we can choose from. We have the Arcanist, which can summon magical avatars of ancient godlike entities. There's the Chimerist, who can learn spells from creatures and speak with beasts. Then there's the Darkblade, which can unleash dark attacks and draw power from bonds. The Elementalist wields the destructive power of the elements. The Entropist channels the dark energy of the cosmos. The Fury provokes enemies and hits harder when damaged. The Guardian protects the allies and fights clad in heavy armor. The Lore Master is a master of knowledge and support for the allies. The Orator uses their words to gain allies and influence. The Rogue seizes opportunities and steals unique items from enemies. The Sharpshooter excels at ranged combat and negates ranged attacks. The Spiritist supports allies with magic and casts light spells. The Tinkerer crafts inventions and uses inventory points in new ways. The Wayfarer is a master explorer and is able to join with a loyal companion. And the Weapon Master excels at melee combat and counters melee attacks. So those are all 15 of our starting classes. We get to choose 2 or 3 of them to distribute our 5 levels across. Whenever we pump a level into any of these classes, we do get a few things. If it's the first level of that class, we actually get some starting benefits. These are usually like an increased HP or MP, things like that. There's also going to be a list of questions for each class to kind of help flesh out your backstory. Of course, you don't really need to answer those if you already have a strong vision in mind. And then there is a set of 5 class skills. These skills are unique to each class. Some of them can actually be ranked up if they have the plus sign next to it. So I'm actually going to take 2 classes for my character Oona. We're going to be taking Chimerist and the Elementalist to kind of create that Druid archetype that I've been talking about. For the Chimerist, I'm going to be putting 3 levels into that. So the Chimerist free benefits is to permanently increase our mind points by 5. We can also perform rituals whose effects fall within the ritualism discipline. Our 5 Chimerist skills include Consume, Feral Speech, Pathogenesis, Ritual Chimerism, and Spell Mimic. We're going to be taking Feral Speech as one of our skills, so we can communicate with creatures of the beast, monster, and plant species. We'll also take Ritual Chimerism, which allows us to perform rituals whose effects fall within the Chimerism discipline. When we acquire this skill, we do need to choose Insight and Willpower or Might and Willpower. We're going to be taking Insight and Willpower, as we'll see a little bit later when we get into our attributes. But what this does is, from now on, our Chimerism rituals will use those 2 chosen attributes for the magic check. And last but not least, we're going to take Spell Mimic. So when we see a creature belonging to the beast, monster, or plant species cast a spell, we may immediately choose to learn that spell as a Chimerist spell of our own. If you do, record the species of the creature you learned it from. So when we first acquire the skill, we're going to choose either Insight and Willpower or Might and Willpower. We're of course going to choose Insight and Willpower, and whenever we use that offensive spell, we're going to use those chosen attributes to perform the magic check, regardless of the attributes used by the creature we learned the spell from. We can have up to skill level plus 2 different Chimerist spells memorized this way. If we want to memorize a new Chimerist spell but are already at our limit, we must forget one of our old spells and replace it with a new spell. So right off the bat, we can have up to 3 Chimerist spells. We're also taking Elementalist as our second class, and our free benefits include another increase to mind points, again by 5, and we also get to perform rituals whose effects fall within the ritualism discipline, so same as the Chimerist. Our Elementalist skills are Cataclysm, Elemental Magic, Magical Artillery, Ritual Elementalism, and Spellblade. Since we have 2 levels left, we're going to be putting both of those points into Elemental Magic. For Elemental Magic, each time we acquire this skill, we get to learn 1 Elementalist spell, which is on the next 2 pages. Offensive spells also will use Insight and Willpower for the magic check. So let's take a look at the spells. There's a few number of spells, and they range from air, lightning, earth, fire, or ice. So, being of a druid mindset, I'm going to be taking Terra. So spires of jagged rock erupt from the ground beneath your foes, closing around them. Each target hit by the spell suffers the high roll plus 15 earth damage. The spell cannot target creatures who are flying, floating, falling, or otherwise in mid-air. Each target hit by this spell performs 1 fewer action on their next turn to a minimum of 0 actions. We're also going to be taking Vortex, since we are putting 2 points into Elemental Magic. And with Vortex, a roaring gale surrounds you, blowing away arrows and bullets. Until the spell ends, you gain a +2 bonus to your defense against ranged attacks. And this spell lasts pretty much the entire scene, which is very nice. Next, we need to calculate what our base die sizes are for our attributes. There are 4 attributes in Fabula Ultima. We have Dexterity, which measures precision, coordination, finesse, and reflexes. We have Insight, which represents observation, understanding, and reasoning. We have might, which is a measure of strength, resilience, and physical fortitude. And then we have willpower, which represents determination, charisma, and the ability to influence others. And what we're going to do, we're going to choose one of the following profiles and then distribute those die sizes to our attributes. So there's the Jack of all trade, which gives a static D8 to all attributes. Then there's the average, which gives a D10, a 2 D8s, and then a D6. And then there's the specialized, which gives 2 D10s and 2 D6s. We're going to be taking specialized. And if you've been following up on this video, you probably know why. Our two main attributes are insight and willpower. So our dexterity is going to be a D6, our insight will be a D10, our might will be a D6, and our willpower will be a D10. And essentially, whenever we do a skill or we're attacking or something, we'll take those two attributes that we're using for that skill and we'll roll them together. Next, we need to calculate our starting hit points, mind points, inventory points, defense, magic defense, and initiative modifier. Our hit points equals our total character level plus 5 times the base die size for might. In this case, that's going to be 35. Our mind points equals our total character level plus 5 times our base dice size for willpower plus our free class benefits. And remember, we're adding a total of 10 MP from our classes. So in this case, our MP is going to be 65. Next, we have our inventory points, which is a static 6. We have our defense, which equals our dexterity die size, which is also a 6, but of course armor can increase that, a die size. Our magic defense is our insight die size, which is 10, but again, armor can add to that. And then our initiative modifier is going to be straight up 0, but our armor can add or subtract from that. And last but not least, we do get a budget of 500 zenith to purchase equipment. We can add any leftovers to that 500 to our roll of 2d6 times 10 to determine our initial savings. I'll be taking 3 items from the basic weapons. Now, any items that have that little red star next to it means that we have to actually be trained in order to use that. So there are certain classes that can actually use some of those. We're going to be taking a staff as our primary weapon. This is going to be a 2-handed melee weapon that costs 100 zenith. And the accuracy, or to hit with it, we roll willpower plus willpower, so 2 willpower dice. And the damage is going to be the high roll of those 2 numbers plus 6 physical damage. We're also going to be taking a steel dagger, but this is primarily for cosmetic and narrative reasons. I mean, being in the forest, I don't think you would ever be without a sharp object, so I'm going to go ahead and take the steel dagger for that purpose. You never know when it could come in handy. And for our armor, we're going to be taking a combat tunic, which costs 150 zenith. Now, this adds a plus 1 to our dexterity die for defense, and a plus 1 to our insight die for our magic defense. It doesn't take or add anything to our initiative, which is primarily why I decided to take that over the travel garb. And really, that's all there is to creating a character in Fabula Ultima. They do list the last step as naming your character in pronouns, but I mean, I kind of did that first anyway, so there are some character names here if you need them. And if you're having trouble with coming up with some character combinations, there are some classic characters, or rather some classic classes. So like you have the Alchemist, which combines the Tinker and the Wayfarer, or the Black Knight, which combines the Dark Blade, Entropist, and Weapons Masters. So you can take a look at those and choose one if you like. There's a few number of them, which is pretty interesting. So let's take a look at the character sheets. The character sheets actually come in 3 pages. The first page we have our main stats and everything that we're going to need. The other 2 pages are skills and spells. So our name is Oona, pronouns she and her. She is the last druid of the Dark Forest. Her theme is duty, and she hails from the Dark Forest. We're not going to worry about bonds this time around because we don't have a group to play with, but over time, as you play with characters or even NPCs, you're going to form bonds. We are going to start with 1 Fabula point because we don't have any, but I'll explain that in the actual review. It's basically a meta currency, and the GM gets Ultima points, so it's basically the reverse of that, only for NPCs. We don't have any experience points, so we don't need to worry about that. Our initiative modifier is 0, our defense is 8, and our magic defense is 12, mainly because of the combat tunic. Remember, we get a +1 to our dex and a +1 to our insight. So instead of having a 6 for defense, we roll that up to the next die number. We do have a staff, which uses willpower plus willpower for accuracy, and the damage is the high roll +6 physical damage. Our attributes are dexterity is a d6, insight is a d10, might is a d6, and willpower is a d10. We don't have any status effects upon us right now, so we don't need to worry about slow, dazed, weak, shaken, enraged, or poisoned. Our max HP is 35, and our crisis is the halfway mark of that, and I put that at 17. Our mind points is 65, and our inventory points are 6. We took 3 levels of Chimerist, and we took Feral Speech, Ritual Chimerism, and Spell Mimic, and we took 2 levels of Elementalist, which we opted to take Elemental Magic twice for Terra and Elemental Shroud. On the second page, we have our 2 spells, Terra and Vortex. I actually forgot to write our Elemental Shroud on that, but basically it gives us resistance to any element that we name when we cast that spell. And on the last page, there's more room for spells, but we don't need that because we're a wimpy 5th level character. And that's all there is to creating a character in Fabula Ultima. So feel free to leave a comment down below, give this video a huge thumbs up to support this series, and I will see you guys in the next video.